Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for joining us for another segment. In this segment, we're going to be speaking with Morris Panner. He's joining us here as president of Intelerad Medical Systems. Intelerad is a global leader in medical imaging management solutions. He's going to talk about the new Enterprise Imaging and Informatics Suite. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Morris Panner.
Neil, thank you and the network for having me. It's very exciting.
Enterprise Imaging and Informatics Suite. What is your background in this area and what led you to Intelerad?
Neil, great question. My background has really been spending the last 10 years trying to make imaging more accessible for physicians and for patients. And that really led me to Intelerad. Intelerad is a world leader in providing visualization software, the viewing software for radiologists. And if you think about the traditional world, radiologists would diagnose a medical condition based on an X-ray or an MRI or a CAT scan. Mm-hmm. But really, in the last 10 years, the world has changed dramatically. And that has brought me to Intelerad with this mission and brought us to the Imaging Informatics Suite, which I think will be pretty fun for your listeners to hear about.
Well, first off, talk about some of the changes in the last decade or so, and then talk about some of the biggest challenges.
Absolutely, Neil. In the last 10 years, and really it's accelerated dramatically in the last 2 or 3, believe it or not, the influence of digital health has transformed the way we think about accessing care. I think COVID was a dramatic accelerant in that. All of a sudden, people couldn't access a hospital. And you've started to see that in telehealth visits. But now you're also seeing it for more serious conditions. And the more serious conditions are usually the times when you need to get that X-ray or that MRI exam. And as a result, being able to have access to that anywhere in the cloud is a big deal. And that's the revolution that we're part of, is giving patients and doctors the ability to interact virtually. And that's a really cool development.
Are the opportunities to better the imaging landscape, are they only within the hospital setting?
Neil, you really kind of drove home a wonderful point, which is, I don't remember which consulting firm said this, but their statement was the most interesting innovations in healthcare are often happening outside the 4 walls of a hospital. So that means that you really need to be able to make all this data, whether it's patient records or whether it's imaging data, accessible everywhere. And those care settings are in urgent care clinics, in physician practices, and even, as we mentioned, virtually in telehealth context. So all of a sudden, you're seeing the need for access almost everywhere, and that's very exciting.
Are these changes and innovations readily noticeable by the patient, or are these changes more readily noticed by the people that are actually using the technology in the industry?
Another great theme, Neil, which is patient empowerment. And how does the patient take control and really become engaged and involved in their care? And having access to their data, including imaging, is core to that. So we really are starting to see this benefit the physician because they need to collaborate in complicated ways to be able to bring a specialist involved, to be able to access the very best for their patients. That's happening as well. But now the patient is having access to this data and can become a more active participant in their care. And we have found over and over again, the more engaged you are as a patient, the better your outcomes.
So how does this new Enterprise Imaging and Informatics Suite there at Intelerad address these issues?
The Enterprise Imaging Suite in Intelerad takes on the problem of siloed data. In the old days, your imaging data was kind of in the basement of a hospital, if you want to think of it that way. That's where the server room was. That's where it was stored. In the really old days, it would be in the film room on sheets of film. Now, with the use of the cloud and the Imaging Informatics Suite, we're able to make that accessible think of it as almost like the transformation that happened in online banking. That is the transformation we are bringing to healthcare, where all of a sudden the idea that you have to gain physical access to a place to see your image, whether it be on a CD or a printout of some sort, that is changing dramatically. And by being able to put this in the cloud and giving the appropriate safe access rights, one of the key things here is making sure we honor patient privacy. And that's not always an easy thing to do in the digital world. So that's part of the secret sauce. And what we are able to do is bring all that to life in a cloud accessible format. And that's what's really driving the excitement of breaking down the limitations to information in a safe and effective way.
Does the imaging technician, are they afforded less responsibility based on any AI implemented into this software, into this suite?
So great question, Neil. What is the role of artificial intelligence, machine learning in the imaging world? Initially, I think you saw some industry commentators who said, oh, artificial intelligence is going to replace the technicians, is going to replace the radiologists. I actually think nothing could be farther from the truth. Every time you've seen one of these technology revolutions, and AI is another technology revolution of bringing computing power to complex workflow and diagnostic problems, it has not eliminated the need for high quality professionals, but has actually enhanced their role and given them the power to do more. So I think what you're going to see is the continued expansion of more access to care, more excitement, and less burnout for healthcare professionals as they can engage more fully with patients, more fully at the top of their license, rather than some of the things that computers are good at. Anything that is very routine, computers are very good at. But that kind of super kind of power that humans have to bring interpretation and compassion, none of that's going away, and I think it's going to be enhanced.
Well, looking ahead, what's next for Intelerad, and how will your advances change the industry overall?
Intelerad is at the beginning of an extraordinary journey, and that journey is to bring imaging into the care pathway in a more effective way. That mission of improving human health is core to what we do every day. And to be able to do it at a sophisticated level and make this kind of powerful diagnostic tool more accessible and more available is very exciting. So the Enterprise Imaging Informatics Suite is really, if you want to think about it, it is our answer to how do you empower patients, how do you empower physicians, and how do you bring more diagnostic oomph to healthcare in an easier and more accessible way.
Give us a website where we can learn more about Intelerad and the technology that you're developing there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Neil. We're at intelerad.com. It's very easy to find. And on there, you'll see all of what Intelerad has to offer in terms of information and imaging power across lots of specialties, whether it's radiology, cardiology, OBGYN, all of the areas where imaging is core to care. And if it's core to care, that's something Intelerad is excited to engage in and is committed to improving.
Morris, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm hoping that you'll return to Health Professional Radio and we'll have another conversation.
Neil, it's been such a pleasure to be on Health Professional Radio and chatting with you today. Thank you for the opportunity. This is exciting.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Morris Panner, president of Intelerad Medical Systems. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Listen in, download it, SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.